What's up, guys? It's your host, Spartanic ArtsDXD, back with another high school Dix related video. And today we have What If Issei Was Broken, Part 6. If we could try to hit 300 to 400 likes for this video, that'd be absolutely amazing. And if you guys want to know exactly when I upload / my upload schedule, click the little blue button right next to the subscribe button, and it's going to be the link of the premiere. First link in the comment section, and the first link in the description below. So hopefully you guys do click on that. That'd be absolutely amazing. And, obviously, when it comes to this story, we are on part 6 currently, so that's pretty awesome. But I'm not even going to sugarcoat any more time. If you guys want to subscribe to my second channel, Aunt Palpowski, we're over 100k on there. I don't know, still bamboozled by that, and we're close to 60,000 on Spartanic ArtsDXD. So yeah. Once again, if you guys want to send me some what if names or some stories, you can always, my email's down in the description below. You just email me. I will read them. Sometimes I won't respond because I got a lot of notifications. But yeah. Thank you for the support, ladies and gentlemen. Without any further intrusion, let's go and thank my Balance Breakers / Juggernaut Drive members: Aunt Lewis, Lachlan Yates, VR Wuff, Refeek135, Dark Phoenix, Ziki 2000, The Ghost of the Uchiha, Jordan Pachow, The Black Dragon Emperor, Rob the King, and Native Darwook. Native Darkwolf. I am so sorry. Thank you so much for becoming a Balance Breaker and a Juggernaut Drive member. Seriously, cannot thank you enough. And also, obviously, if you guys want to see me react to HighSchool DxD and many other animes, you can swing over to my Patreon. And while that is on the turn, let's go ahead and thank my Patreon members: David Tanner, Ryuka, Lachlan Yates, The Black Dragon Emperor, Godkiller, Ziki 2000, Striple Anchor, Mark Bacon, Sharklock, Jay Dawson, Kefir Windsor, and Smells Noise. Thank you so much for becoming a Patreon member. Seriously, once again, I can't thank you guys enough. I've been practicing editing and things like that, so hopefully some better edited videos comes out eventually soon, but that's probably gonna come out a lot later in the year due to the fact that I have to go back to school, and then this is it. Yeah, I graduate, so then after that I can fully focus up on YouTube and things like that. So thank you so much for the support, ladies and gentlemen, and without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into part 6. Chapter 15. Partner. Listen, I have something I want to teach you, Ddraig randomly said, while Issei was sitting down in front of the campfire. What is it? Issei was currently cooking some rabbit that he found in the middle of nowhere. I think you've become strong enough for this. I want you to focus on your arm. Issei immediately followed his partner's command and closed his eyes. I will be initiating an original power of mine from before I was sealed. Remember the feeling, because this will be a very important move you will come to love. Penetrate! Issei felt a sensation in his arm, opening his arm and seeing his arm being illuminated by a dim crimson light. Issei could only open his mouth in amazement. This was something new, and his partner had taught him this. What does this do? Issei said. It does as it says. It penetrates through any defensive magic, potentially some attacks, and I can land fatal damage to anyone that gets hit. Try it out against some opponents. With that, Ddraig watched as Issei began processing what he said. Wait, that's extremely powerful, being able to nullify defense, and, if I'm guessing, pierce straight through attacks that would make this perfect counterattack and surprise attack. I suggest trying to synergize the move with your normal fighting methods, but make it not so predictable. If your opponent sees your hand randomly glow, they will try the best to avoid that attack. Make it a surprise. Set up the attack and try to execute it perfectly. Speaking of the surprise, Ddraig, look at what I made with these sticks. Issei, having a bunch of free time to himself, turned to the side towards a large figure built from sticks in the forest. It's beautiful. Ddraig could only look at the figure in awe. The masterpiece that Issei made resembled a specific dragon. The sticks formed Ddraig. Issei remembered all the details of Issei and made the figure. I felt like making this for you. Your design is awesome. I just wanted to appreciate you for helping me through the thick and thin of things, partner. Thank you. This is amazing, is what all Ddraig could say. He was never used to someone giving him a gift. Actually, Ddraig had never received a gift from anyone. He was always alone, fighting for his life in this world. Don't mention it. We are partners. Ddraig could only feel his face contorting into a large smile. Ddraig was smiling. Well, this is amazing. When were you this good at making things? Honestly, I just thought of an image of you and began letting my hands move on their own. The results were amazing. I was blown away. I've had to show you this. I made sure the barrier around here to avoid the wind. You might be able to make it a career in art in the future. Nah, they make some artificial intelligence to make it in the click of a button. Why go to that field when robots will begin doing it better? Damn, humans really are advancing quickly. Give us an opportunity and we'll take it, whether it be for the better or worse. What would be an example of something being worse? Facebook, Twitter. Those two are the only ones that I remember. But they are fresh and brand new to the world. What's the worst thing that could happen with those things? Imagine that you allow people that believe the world is flat to roam around a large platform where people can share their ideas. Ddraig stayed silent for a bit before speaking. Okay, I see where this is going. If humans keep this up, the supernatural world might just press the delete button on humans. Honestly, I couldn't care less about them. If my parents, you, and I are fine, I couldn't care less about the rest of the world. Issei, while sitting down finally grabbing his cooked rabbit, taking a massive bite out of it, Issei could only comment. Could have tasted better with some salt. With that, Ddraig and Issei began conversing about random things that they like doing. Yeah, watching the clouds, seeing nature's roaming around, their own thing is the only thing I did besides training and fighting, Ddraig said. Issei could only sympathize about Draig's life. That must have been boring. Very boring. You would think that, but living through doing the same thing over and over again, boredom is what many would call it. But I never thought of it like that. It was just a normal day. Here and there, I would watch random rabbits do stupid things that would cause some amusement. Ddraig said while listening. Issei nodded of understanding where Ddraig was coming from. He was an ancient dragon that was only exposed to boredom. So boredom was something normal to him. Well, I think it's time to go for some hunting. We got a hunch of training to do, but I think I might be able to take a good break in a couple of days and visit my parents. I don't want to begin worrying about me to the point where they have to start the search party looking for me. Yeah, having a little break might be good. With that, Issei blasted through the forest trying to sense any sort of disturbance. Wait, try and move northeast. Move a bit, and I'll tell you to stop when need be. I sense a huge amount of energy signatures there. Following Draig's words, Issei began running towards the area, moving at blinding speeds, cutting straight through the trees at the speed that he was moving at. Issei appeared in the middle of nowhere after Ddraig told him to stop. This wasn't even that far. It felt like a couple minutes until we arrived here. Yeah, you also move a lot faster than any human vehicle. Anyways, this might be a good idea to teach you another thing. Try and boost your senses up to the max and try to sense the energy signatures underneath this place. Understood. Issei did exactly that, enhancing his senses to a point where his entire head was glowing a dark shade of crimson. With that, Issei began to visualize a grid map in his head while his eyes were closed. He couldn't describe it properly, but it felt like his head was able to visualize three-dimensional grid that told him how many figures were underneath him. There were many red glowing dots ranging in size. Issei guessed he had to deal with their powers ranging drastically underneath him, much underneath him. It wouldn't be wise to launch a surprise attack. There is no telling how many powerful beings are underneath here. Plus, having the ground collapse will give away my hiding spot, Issei told himself, while beginning to scoop the dirt beneath him with his own hands at the lightning speeds. Making a small hole large enough for him, he begins his decline to the point where he scooped through a cave. What the hell? Enhancing his eyesight even further, Issei began seeing clearly through the pitch dark. As if the night vision, Issei was able to see the countless number of stray devils within this cave. What the hell? Why are there so many rogue fallen angels and stray devils in the open, especially when they are in the same forest area? Not only that, but they were roughly around the same power. If not, the stray devils definitely had the numbers. Why are there so many of them? Issei, you may not know this, but the supernatural world had always been here before humans. We had countless icons to reproduce and grow our populations and advance upon issues that your race to go through, such as world hunger. You may have large amounts of criminals, but that is dwarfed from the number of stray devils around the world. The group may be large, however, this is only a small fraction of stray devils around the world, Ddraig said. Blowing away Issei's mind, it made sense the supernatural world had many more years to populate it than the human world, sure. Pure-blooded devils, or pure-blood devils, other side of the supernatural world may have dwindled, but half-breeds were shooting up in numbers to make up for that. Seeing this number of stray devils, and them being underground within a cave, this is a large system that these stray devils use to hide from the world. This might be crazy to say. Killing these monsters will bring more joy within the devil community. This will definitely confuse the world with our intentions. Issei thought about it and began watching what the stray devils were. Some of them were definitely stronger than most of the six-winged fallen angels that he fought against. This is where Issei began thinking about something, instantly moving back towards the surface while placing the small little balls of energy of his own. Issei continued soaring through the sky with his own magic while placing smaller energy balls until he was high enough and counted nearly 100 energy balls. Issei made that energy balls were so minuscule that they wouldn't be sensed by the stray devils. Ddraig, hide my presence with a barrier. I'm about to end this in a single attack. Ddraig placed a barrier around Issei. Balance Breaker! Entering his newest form, Issei didn't have much time. Activating his aura to a point where it was out of control, Ddraig was pushed to the point where he needed to put in some effort into hiding Issei's presence completely. Partner, what the hell are you doing? Don't worry, trust me, bro. With that, Issei began boosting to the maximum amount that he could before silently saying the words. Ddraig, place all that energy from the barrier into my armor. Ddraig was confused, but he trusted Issei. Doing so, Issei's armor began cracking from the pressure. His body wasn't supposed to be able to take this amount of energy. However, Issei quickly activated a skill. Transfer! In an instant, all of his energy was placed into 100 energy balls to the point where they were immense size, easily as large as a small building each one of them connected to another. But in that instant, Issei formed his aura around his right arm once before saying, Penetrate! Penetrate! On his command, his aura blade was engulfed by the power of Penetrate, and he launched the blade as a projectile into his middle energy balls. The aura blade began accumulating all of the energy that Issei was building up. Penetrate isn't a skill that goes along with other attacks itself, rather than just being a physical attack. Yeah, partner. You are diabolical. Ddraig finally understood where Issei was going with this. Penetrate. He could empower one of his attacks with it, and then also enhance that attack to the point where it would replicate a nuclear bomb. In doing so, the attack would be empowered by Penetrate while expanding outwards, but it might lose its effectiveness with Penetrate. But the ability to take down a defense utility was still there, and it still might deal serious amounts of damage to the vitals of his enemies. Not diabolical, I just wanted to make sure that my enemies are killed. Even if the environment needs to be sacrificed, I don't care for the world, since it never cared for me. With that, all hell broke loose. Chapter 16. A massive explosion decimated a huge portion of the landscape and was turned upside down. However, that wasn't the only thing that happened. The land, the cave that held the stray devils, had been exposed to the surface. The only thing that was left after the smoke cleared were the blood and broken limbs of the stray devils. Issei landed on the ground, the blazing ground that he looked up with mixed expressions. He destroyed all those devils. He was conscious this time, questioning himself. Crack! A pile of rocks began breaking apart. Issei turned to where the sound came from and looked to see the red blob of flesh that looked disintegrated and began moving towards Issei. Backing away into the air, Issei made sure to stay a little away from the blob, began morphing its head. Issei watched a slight fear of disgusting thing that was in front of him. You have come to my domain. The voice, it was echoed throughout this area. My minions, they all fell. Is that what you think? Issei didn't feel good about this anymore. He began powering up right into Balance Breaker. This is bizarre. Who is this stray? Even Ddraig was confused. That was when Issei felt something behind him, instinctively dodged, but he was attacked by flying air. Turning to see what it was another flesh sludge, by much larger. Come to me, my minions. Flying higher, Issei watched in horror as the limbs of all the stray devils began melting into a just flesh. They began traveling back to the main flesh blob. The flesh began detaching and reattaching with the flesh, slowly began growing in size. A huge legion of flesh. Blobs began fusing together. That was until a monster with the eyes of the dead strays began. Blood began falling from its mouth while it landed right back on the flesh beneath. Partner, this might be one of the highest ranked stray devils. I don't know if it'd be wise to fight against it. Issei didn't want to fight against something so horrific. However, he could move. A flesh tentacle narrowly missed his head. Issei could only watch as part of his armor was destroyed. Do not be afraid. You will become one of us soon, the devil says. Issei backed away and watched the sludge begin to form a beam. That thing is disgusting, Issei said while watching where the monster was to aim through its many eyes. Right there. Issei narrowly dodged a beam aiming straight for his liver. What the hell? Issei sends the beam boomerang right back to him. Dodging once more, Issei rushed straight at the sludge. Yes, come to me, my child. Penetrate! Issei stuck his aura blade out and with penetrate, he was able to bypass the sludge defense in that monster had, damaging the very essence the monster was made of. Hearing the scream from the monster, Issei watched as the sludge began foaming around him. Leave that to me, Ddraig said, while forcefully teleporting Issei back away from the sludge. Partner, whatever you do, do not let that sludge touch you. The properties are unknown, but always assume the worst to make sure you are the best. Issei embraced himself. His fist clenched tightly and he faced the sludge monster. He took what his partner said seriously. He was a novice in the supernatural world, and Ddraig knew far more than him. Following Draig's advice would definitely bring more safety than following his own pride. The monster's slimy from quivered in malevolence, an amorphous mass of revolting sludge. The air was thick in its putrid odor, causing Issei's eyes to water, but he refused to let it distract him from the battle at hand. What are you waiting for? Come here, become family. With a surge of power, Issei lunged forward. With his fist, covered in penetration power, propelled at intense speeds, he changed his fighting tactics. Transfer! Spreading all of his boosted power into his legs with pure speed and relying on penetration to carry out his damaged outputs. He aimed for the monster's supposed center, the potential brain location within the large head, hoping to penetrate through its galactous exterior. The sludge monster reacted swiftly, lashing out tendrils of sludge to inspect Issei's assault. Issei dodged and weaved. His body was moving with astonishing agility. The tendrils of sludge missed by mere inches, leaving corrosive trails on the ground where they struck. He could feel the sheer malice emanating from the monster, knowing that a single touch would spell his doom. Closing the distance between them, Issei focused his energy and delivered a mighty punch, aiming to pierce through the sludge monster's core. His first collided with the monster's mass, sinking deep into slimy flesh. The sludge the monster howled in pain, fury. It's from convulsing violently. However, Issei immediately dodged to the left, sidestepping and narrowly dodging. Part sludge formed, an arm slamming him into the ground next to him. Issei took off into the air. However, what he didn't know was that the sludge arm morphed into a tentacle. Relying on instinct, Issei moved his head to left and narrowly dodged the tentacle. However, the tentacle stopped and turned to him mid-fight. Issei used penetrate to crush the tentacle in front of him, watching the flesh monster beneath him. Issei had an even greater plan. Enhancing himself, Issei covered himself in all his aura. Combined with his boosted gear's power, Issei began enhancing himself to the highest degree he could possibly go. Gritting his teeth, Issei dove straight towards the sludge monster. That's when his flurry of attacks began. Issei unleashed a relentless barrage of strikes upon the sludge monster, his enhanced strength and speed allowing him to deliver powerful blows with each attack. His fists and kicks landed with precision, shattering chunks of the creature and flesh, causing it to writhe in pain. Penetrate was being used in all attacks. Now he was feeling the toll of his overuse of the attack, slowly shaking his bones, but the adrenaline was taking over quickly. As Issei continued his assault, he noticed that the sludge monster's movement were becoming sluggish. Ddraig, support me. Remove the placement of the armor from unnecessary places and place them towards the places being used right now. Enhance them to the max. I see the end. Ddraig did just that. Issei began feeling his armor lose some plates, but those plates were quickly placed into his fist, elbow, knee, and shins. This allowed his head to deliver even more impactful force under the sludge. It seemed that his attacks were taking a toll on the creature, weakening its defenses and leaving it vulnerable to further damage. With a surge of determination of seeing the end, Issei continued staying at the same level, not faltering at all. His aura stayed stagnant, crackling with the same energy as he channeled it into his attacks. Each strike became more potent, carrying the force of his enhanced abilities and the amplification of his boosted gear. How many attacks has it been? Hundreds? He lost count after hearing the screams of the demon in front of him. The sludge monster struggled to counter Issei's onslaught. Its amorphous from unable to defend against the sheer force behind his strikes, the speed that Issei was moving at. The large body couldn't keep up with each hit. Chunks of its body disintegrated, dissolving into the ground. However, what felt so weird was that Issei landed his first blow that he reeled his hand back the further and twisted his hip to the fast as he could. Issei delivered the strongest punch of the onslaught, shattered flesh monster into pieces. That didn't seem right. No, he was disintegrating into nothingness, but breaking apart into pieces. That didn't seem right. Issei didn't waste any time. Moving straight into the air and looking down, Issei didn't see anything change. Nothing happened. What was this? This was That was when the ground began melting. The sludge began forming once more. The sludge began growing in size. Issei watched as the sludge began expanding outwards, grabbing onto the nearby trees, plants, and grass to assimilate into his body. Growing then, the sludge began shooting hundreds of flesh tentacles straight at Issei, moving at fast speeds, but Issei was able to predict some of the movements. Moving as fast as he could, Issei began circling the monster in front of him, but noticed something weird. The tentacles didn't boomerang back like them before, but rather they remained in place. That was when Issei noticed the tentacles began connecting with each other and began glowing. They were going to explode right in front of him, blocking himself from the potential damage of the blast by forming a large barrier, and around himself the tentacles began warping around him, burning away at the barrier he formed. The sludge monster quickly formed a face right on his barrier and said, "Soon the very gods will become one of us." Blowing up right in front of Issei, the barrier tried its best to withstand the force of the blast. Issei continued boosting the barrier. That was when the barrier shattered from the pressure and the flesh began engulfing Issei, attaching it to him. Issei could only feel pain. This was nothing like any he had ever felt before. The sludge began suffocating him, entering his mouth. This was happening so quickly. This was a thing growing in power the more it came in contact with anything around. The flesh began burning Issei from the inside out. What the hell was this thing? This flesh, it was ripping his flesh out, melting his flesh to become part of his. No, he couldn't die. No, she was still out there. No, he will not die. With his own power, Issei with every ounce of his willpower placed everything into his fist and applied penetrate on his entire body. Using his aura, Issei shined brightly before exploding all around him. The sludge screamed before disintegrating once more. Issei watched as he lost all of his energy, landing on one knee and watching the flesh armor in front of him began reforming. However, before it looked at Issei, the monster continued growing outwards, grabbing onto more of the ground, feasting upon plants, dirt, trees, and even unfortunate animals that were in the proximity. Not only that, but they were more dismembered body parts and strays of that were beneath the rubble, the deepest part of the rubble that began moving towards the flesh monster. "Come to me. Become one with me." This thing was dangerous. There was no way that he'd be able to handle that monster in front of him in his current state. However, he left. There was no telling how much powerful this thing would become. This was probably the best chance of defeating him. If any more fallen angels, stray devils, or regular devils begin getting in contact with this monster, the power of this thing will increase extraordinarily high levels. "Looks like I'll have to get involved." Ddraig quickly used his power to recover to Issei's own power. Quickly, feeling the surge of Draig's power entering his body, Issei quickly took off into the air once more. The monster began getting annoyed, looking at Issei intensely. That was when the monster began condensing the flesh that it had into a singular point. Issei watched as the sludge began forming it into an animal shape. That was when Issei felt the power of increasing even further than before. This thing, it won't stop growing. Issei began feeling fear. There was no way they'd be able to handle this alone. How does something like this even exist in the supernatural world? "I believe that it was sleeping underneath the ground. We woke up this monster from its slumber," the monster continued, condensing until it was finally the shape of a deer. Not only that, but there were 3 or 4 mystical orbs that flowed around it. Issei felt it. Fear. Watching the ring in front of him simply stare at him. Fear. Seeing the thing motionless. Fear. The point that it was emanating in was terrifying. "Ddraig, I need your help." Issei felt fear. Genuine fear for the first time in his life. How was he going to win? No matter what he threw at the monster would simply regenerate the damage. Was he too weak to actually harm it? While Issei was fearing for the worst, his partner simply looked at the monster through his partner's eyes and started thinking about what they could do. Issei was still an amateur in the world, while Ddraig was a master. Chapter 17. Brothers work together. Issei immediately watched one of the flying orbs rushing straight at him, moving at speeds that he couldn't keep up with. "Listen, I'll give you signals, and you'll just have to dodge the attacks." Taking the brunt of the attack, Issei felt his wings shatter into 1,000 pieces. The thing was aiming right to get rid of my wings. "You don't have time to seeing what happened. Focus on what will happen. Move left." Issei got his composure back and swung to it. Another dodge, another right. Issei rather ducked his head and dodged next to the next orb. However, he felt his arm coming right back to him from behind. "You need to get back onto the ground." Issei raised his hand into the air and caused a small explosion to shoot him down. Once on the ground, Issei watched as he already dodged 2 of the orbs that were aiming for his back. Now there were 2 orbs, one coming towards him from the front, one coming from the back. Both were heading towards him at the same speed. However, Issei silently formed a barrier around himself, which the impact of the two orbs slowed down their speed, enough for Issei to see the two orbs' trajectory and move his body dodge to two orbs. They barely grazed his shoulder, with both of them shattering the armor that covered his shoulder. However, the orb stopped, and the moment that they shattered his armor, Issei expected for the worst. In a mad dash away from the orbs, that was when Issei began noticing something. The deer monster in front of him hadn't moved at all, it was just staring at him. How was he going to beat this monster? There was no way that he was going to win. Even before increasing his power, Issei was barely able to match the power of the sludge monster now. There was no way that he was going to win, but he needed to end this thing now. Even if it doesn't, the thing will grow uncontrollably, potentially even being too much for his future self. The deer monster stayed still, confused why Issei wasn't moving anymore. Partner, get your shit together. What the hell are you thinking right now? Draig's word echoed through his mind. Why the hell are you afraid? Ddraig, how do I beat this thing? I've given it my all, but I can't win. It just keeps getting back up no matter what I do. The thing only comes back without scratches of any sign of fatigue. Partner, I can't guarantee that you'll win. No, I can never lie to you. However, there's one thing I can tell you. It is really why you want to go out? Issei stayed silent, not understanding what his partner was saying. Are you willing to die, fearing death, while you've lived through it once already? Are you willing to give up against this thing? How are you going to get your revenge against her? Are you willing to let her walk away with what she has done to you? How will you watch her break down in front of you? How you will break her, while you can't break this monster in front of you? Rainier will live unless you fight this thing. So partner, why be afraid of something when you already been through something worse? No, I will kill her. I will break her. I will make her suffer far worse than she made me suffer. Issei spoke with pure hatred. The deer monster tilted its head, randomly negativity that Issei was showing. Ddraig stayed silent. He knew that abusing his partner's trauma and using it to empower him was terrible for him, but he needed his partner to live. He gulped before finally counting. Partner, you're only being dragged down by your fear. You can do this. Think of the monster as being one of Rainier's henchmen. Remember, she could be watching you suffer. She could be the one controlling all of this. Issei stopped, and this was when his hatred began flooding his mind. The deer in front of him. He needed to kill it if he wanted to defeat Rainier. It was an obstacle that he needed to kill. 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 He will kill it. With his emotions being such a driving force for him since he was a dragon. His entire being was being driven by his emotions, hatred. It was the only thing he needed to lose control of his aura. The heat that he was beginning to exhibit was beginning to melt the ground. Nothing will stop me from ripping that bitch to pieces. Issei began filling in power by the boosted gear. Not only that, the hatred from the two dragons can never be looked down upon. Albion, father of angels, Lucifer, you have brought all misery to me. My partner is the one to save me, and I will not have him dead. Have fear. The power of the boosted gear began increasing to levels that is never shown before. His entire body began glowing crimson with red flames engulfing him. His bluish aura was surrounded by crimson flames. For I am here! A large projection of Ddraig engulfed Issei. This wasn't the battle between Issei and the deer monster. It was the battle between a berserk Issei and an enraged Ddraig. The deer monster finally had enough. Seeing Issei finally acting, it wasn't confused anymore and rushed straight towards Issei. Using one of its sharp antlers, it tried piercing Issei at blinding speeds, but Ddraig took control of Issei's legs and forced him to lean downwards to narrowly dodge the attempt. Stepping forwards, placing all of his weight into his right arm, letting the berserk Issei slam a right hook right of the neck of the beast. Penetrate was obviously used and the damage was staggering. Deform the head of the monster, Issei didn't stop there. He was going all out. Every ounce of his anger, sadness, power, and essence was going into the battle. Left, right, left hook, uppercut. It was all being used each. Each attack landed devastating the amount of power, but the deer monster wasn't done yet. Quickly, when taking out the uppercut, it yanked its head right back down and cut Issei's armor and skin on his chest with sharp antlers. However, Issei didn't budge at all. His adrenaline was through the roof, ignoring all the pain that he could take. He continued landing attacks from the punches to kicks, but he continued taking the brunt of the slashes. That monster was landing, cut after cut. Issei began feeling his armor ripping apart. Ddraig was trying to find an opening. opening. When the deer tried to back up a little bit, having its entire upper body deformed, Ddraig took the opportunity to quickly pinpoint all the aura and power from the boosted gear into Issei's hand and applied it to penetrate at the same time. In an instant, Issei watches his right arm move in its own and saw his hand deep within the flesh deer's stomach. Before his hand exploded with his aura within the deer, the monster screamed in agony before sent it soaring through the sky. Listen, Issei, I'll be allowing you to use a skill never thought I will ever use again. Your body can only handle it once before it crumbles from the heat. Use it wisely. Hearing his partner even more through his rage, Issei nodded before letting go of all of his armor. Ddraig, focus on making the armor onto my arms only. Listening to his partner and Issei feeling a sensation through the boosted gear. This feeling was strange. Issei, show the world what it means to be feared. Show the world the blazing inferno of the scorching flames, my flames, echoes Drake's voice did with a lot of pride. That was when Issei felt the flames form in his hands, the intense heat. It began melting his armor and parts of his skin closest to the flames. However, Issei watched the deer in front of him rush towards him, boosting to the max, placing all of his energy into the flames, expanding the flames until they were easily half the size of Ddraig. He began condensing the flames once more. By the time the deer reached it, Issei was slowed down by the many deformed parts of his body, causing a struggle for it. Issei wasn't finished. The deer, one more time, slammed its antlers straight through Issei's flesh, tearing straight into the side of Issei rather than the heart. Issei could only stagger from the pain, but he wasn't going to fall down. Applying penetrate, while as the deer began having a large flesh head stretched from its head with eyes and mouth, it began talking. Finally, we become family. Inferno Chrysor. That sound echoed throughout the silent, deserted area before a small bar of energetic flames that was pushed in front of the monster in front of Issei. Sayonara. The flames erupted from Issei's hands, melting through the flesh, the bones, the eyes, the ground. Everything that was in front of Issei was reduced to ashes. Not Issei was safe. Not his entire elm was melted to nearly only a thin layer of skin holding it up. His body was starched from the many burns, cuts, and he stood smiling at what happened. Issei dropped onto his knees, smiling at the accomplishment. He wasn't alone, though. The battle, most of the help was from Ddraig. They won. Partner, we did it. Yes, we did. We won. Issei has taken a bunch of damage from the battle, but there was one thing that he obtained, something of utmost importance. He unlocked Drake's flames, another thing that he would need to work on controlling. Chapter 18. Finally, we won. Yeah, now we need to run. Issei tried his best to move, trying to get onto his feet. Leave this to me. Ddraig forced Issei's hand to move to the left and caused an explosion, sending Issei flying away into the unknown. Issei started screaming when he kept making loops. With his brutally damaged body, he had no control over his movement, leaving him only to fall into the mercy of hopefully landing safely. While Issei was getting trolled by his partner, a couple of hours later, the supernatural world finally began investigating what happened. A question always remained in the supernatural world. Whenever something large would happen, why didn't the leaders confront the potential threat the moment they sense it? It was simple. Some sort of them were afraid of what might happen to them, and this would cause the damage to their respective faction. Sir Zex was sitting down thinking. He may have been the most powerful devil there was, but a simple mistake of lowering his guard, and he could easily change that title. He heard the news, sensed the battle, but he didn't decide to confront whoever won. Lord Lucifer. I have been reported that a top-level stray devil from the ancient times has been killed by an unknown entity. Graphia, his wife, was right next to him reading the report was given to him by the investigators that went to the area during the aftermath of the battle. Not only that, it was that nothing remained of the area. It was almost as if the land turned into ashes. Not a single tree in the proximity remained. We decided to use magic to heal up the trees and plant life to make sure that the humans don't question what happened. Good. Was that all he could say to his life? He sat there thinking to himself, the entity must have been the same person that killed off the Legion of Fallen Angels. However, why would this entity kill off straight devils when the being had killed off innocent fallen angels? This brought Sir Zex into thinking that maybe the fallen angels were in the wrong, provoking the being into killing them. But what could also be wrong? And that being kills everything in sight. I want everyone to remain away from that area unless I give them the task to do so. Make sure that everyone that are affiliated with the Satans are told of what happened. I want everyone to be prepared. I want the public not to panic. I don't want riots happening between the public and us Satans for being afraid of this threat. Understood, Lord Lucifer. Grafia swiftly walked away, leaving Sir Zex to think to himself. The power that I felt. It felt so dark, yet so familiar. This leads back to Issei, who was walking along the road back to his house. He may have taken a little bit too long of a break, but hopefully he doesn't have to deal with the pestering from his parents about it. He might have to go back to school since he wanted to make sure that his parents didn't think that he's been slacking off, or knows his position in the supernatural. He just didn't want the spotlight in the supernatural world just yet. Alright, summer break isn't that far away and I should be able to train some more during that time. Why don't you just quit school? My parents will definitely be disappointed and even more worried about my mental health if I just randomly just told them that I wanted to quit school, especially when the school is filled with women. I don't want them to worry about me, or they have a lot more to worry. I had a host that dropped out of school because he had awakened the boosted gear. It didn't lead into wealth. Being feared and being loved are two different things. Trying to force money from people leads into higher-ups getting involved, and knowing most of my hosts weren't that powerful compared to the higher-ups, yeah, you get the picture of what happened. Not only that, but once I achieve my dream, I will only have to deal with having a human job. Issei watched as speeding cars zoomed him and lost control. Zoomed by him and lost control. Issei simply watches the car crash into a sign, leading into the wall, breaking the wall in the car. In the process, I also need a car. I always wanted to know how driving one would feel like. Issei continued until he reached his house. Knocking on the door of it, and waited for a response. That was when he noticed the door opening to reveal his mother. It was the middle of the night that she was trying to sleep. Hearing the loud knocking had woken her up and brought her open to the door, even if it took a minute or two for it to happen. When seeing who was at the other side of the door, she stopped and widened her eyes. Issei stood in the doorway, his heart pounding as he saw his mother's tear-filled eye. With a moment's hesitation, she rushed toward her and enveloped him in a tight embrace, her sobs echoing in silence of the night. Issei felt a lump foaming in his throat as he held his mother's feeling of a mixture of guilt for causing her so much worry and overwhelmingly joy that he reunited with his family. He only felt care for his family. Only his family could make him this emotional. That included his partner, who also considered Pyro's family. Mom, I'm sorry, Issei managed to say, his voice choked with emotion. I didn't mean to make you so scared. I should have told you to let you know that I was okay. His mother pulled away slightly, her hands trembling as she cupped his face, tears streaming down her cheeks. Issei, my baby boy, we were terrified. We didn't know if something terrible happened to you. We couldn't bear the thought of losing you. Issei's eyes welled up in tears as he realized the extent of his parents' anguish during his absence. He gently wiped his mother's tears and held his hands down on his own. I'm here, Mom. I'm safe. I'm so sorry for making you worry. I should have thought about how you would feel. His father approached, and his voice filled with a mixture of relief and concern. Son, we were so scared. Your mother couldn't sleep, and I couldn't focus on anything. We missed you every single day. Issei turned to his father, his voice trembling with a mixture of guilt and gratitude. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause you both so much pain. I needed time for myself, to find myself, to figure out who I am and what I want to become. But I never stopped loving or thinking about you. His parents pulled him into a group hug, their love, warmth enveloping him like a protective shield. Issei buried his face in the embrace, feeling the flood of emotions swirling within him. Relief, happiness, remorse, and deep sense of gratitude in their unwavering love and support. We love you, Issei, his mother whispered, her voice filled with unconditional love. No matter what happens, we will always be here for you. We're proud of the person you're becoming. His father's voice joined in, filled with pride and tenderness. You've grown into a strong young man, Issei. We've always believed in you, and we always will. Remember, you don't have to face the world alone. We're your family, and we're here to stand by your side. Issei held onto his parents tightly, feeling the overwhelming sense of gratitude for their understanding and acceptance. In that moment, he realized that his family was his anchor, his source of strength, and the reason he fought so hard in the supernatural world. They gave him the courage to face any challenge. That love fueled his determination. As they sat down in the living room, the conversation continued. So where did you go for the past 2 months? His mother asked immediately. I went around the world. I started with the United States, which brought me to Canada. I decided to move to Brazil, then many other countries in Europe, and right back here. Issei was lying straight out of his ass with everything that he said. He remained only in the forests and jungles near him, well, deserts now. "What did you do during those travels? It couldn't have been sightseeing," his mother asked. "I watched some people fight and started some classes. I took some advice on how to train properly and defend myself. It was fun, nevertheless. It destroyed me." "Yeah, but it was definitely worth it," his father complimented. "Just look at that body," his father tried, imitating him, flexing his muscles to even try to look strong. "Calm down, girl. You might pass out. We both know that you haven't done anything close to exercising in years." His mother dropped the bomb, being how harsh and caring she was, shattering the pride that his father had building up for himself. "Come on. He still has the spirit in him. Isn't that the most important part?" Issei tried defending his dad. "Nah, that's been passed down to a specific someone." His mother smiled while looking at Issei. "She's right, you know, but I still do have some spirit. Anyways, what are you going to do about school? Try and pass my exams before going to college? I still want to be successful in the future," Issei said, leaning back on the couch and soaking up the comfortable feeling. It feels good being back. However, Issei didn't notice was the burn mark that he experienced during the battle against the sludge monster, which was still apparent even though the magic was healing, which was finally noticed by his mother, even having Ddraig use some magic to take an illusion to a shirt. His hands still showed huge burn marks. Issei, "What the hell is that?" His mother grabbed his hands and brought his attention to his hand. "I got on playing with some fire and burnt my hand." "This is serious, Issei. A simple fire couldn't have caused this." "Trust me, I'm terrible at dealing with fire, and it couldn't have been put out because, well, I don't know why. Honey, you need medical attention to this." Issei stopped his mother. "Don't worry, I've already checked with the doctors and they said simply to allow it heal normally. It may be sitting here and there, but that's all they wanted me to do." His mother wasn't convinced, but Issei continued, "Mom, this is supposed to be a happy moment. Drop the topic for a different time." His mother decided that she would trust her son. Dropping the topic, the night was filled with tears, laughter, and a profound sense of connection. Issei knew that he was home, surrounded by the unwavering love of his family, and that is the end of chapter 18. That is where we're going to be stopping for now. I read a little longer than I was supposed to today because I wanted to actually see the next chapter for myself this time. So I thought stopping on the one before this was, I felt like not only was it too short, but also it just didn't feel right. So yeah, if you're in the premiere right now, which you probably still are, or maybe you left already, please hit the like button once again. And if you guys want to know when my upload schedule is or when I do upload, click the little blue button right next to the subscribe button, or the first link in the description, or the first link in the comment section, or the first link in the premiere that it's linked on the top. Yeah, that's right, I linked it in like 4 different spots. So thank you so much for the support, ladies and gentlemen. 60K grind. I can't thank you guys enough. Without any further intrusion, ladies and gentlemen, Spartanic Arts DXD